Hey, District 2 sports fans, it's Gregory here, and I want to tell you about our new sponsorship here. If you're looking to make your business stand out, you've got to check out Chaos Cartel Company. They specialize in custom shirts, hats, tumblers, banners, and so much more. And the best part, there's no minimum order, and their pricing is amazing. I should know because we have a few shirts from them. Whether you're a small business or just looking to get some cool merch, Chaos Cartel Company is here to help. They love working with other businesses to bring your brand to life. If you want to get started, give them a call at 434 489 6123 or shoot them an email at chaoscartel1, and that's the number one, at gmail.com. Chaos Cartel Company, making your business look good, one custom piece at a time.
You are now listening to the District 2 Sports Podcast, available on all your favorite music apps. Like and subscribe.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the District 2 Sports Podcast. We have a great feature for you tonight, a great person. And Gregory and Devin, I'm going to go ahead and consider him my newest best friend. So, fourth year head coach of Bryn Athyn Lions. Athan, you can correct me in just a second. Coach Sean Westerlund. And before you speak, Coach, I just want to let everybody know that we had no clue who Sean was before we went to the NCAA tournament at Hampden Syndey. And, we were, Gregory, if you remember, we interviewed everybody at the ODAC tournament. I wasn't sure that the losing team was going to come into the conference room. So we weren't even sure what was going on. So, it was kind of our initiation to the press conference, and then Coach and his players came in, and man, what a joy. Coach, I'm just going to tell you straight up, I didn't know you from Adam that night, and I thought you were a class act. So just welcome to the show. Thank you for taking your time out.
Nah, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about my story, the story of Bryn Athyn, and thank you for the kind words. It means a lot to me that our program was so well represented by our staff and players. It was so much fun to have that experience, and it was really cool to build connection with you and your son, and now being able to meet little Greg as well. I think for me, one of the things that we say in our program is connection is the greatest gift we've ever been given. And you think about this world, it's all about relationships. So the fact that we were able to build that connection there, and how it's going to be so cool to see how this grows for,
Yeah,
the test of time, because you're going to send me those recruiting blasts and we're going to stay connected. You come up to Philly, I'm going to show you guys a good time. If I
absolutely.
get down south, y'all better show me a good time as well.
And you heard that, Devin. He said, y'all.
I heard it. I heard it.
Well,
Who's
I'm
go
gonna
ahead,
go first.
Gary.
So my first question, like I told you, off screen, whatever. I want our fans to know kind of who you are, your background. So if you could talk about just kind of growing up, with the sports you played, maybe starting in high school, how you got recruited to play at Lancaster Bible School, Bible College, and just playing from there.
Yeah. So I come from a big family. I'm one of seven kids. I had two older brothers, two older sisters, a twin brother, and a younger sister. And so typical big family, you're fighting for attention of mom and dad. And me and my twin brother, we really just came to love playing sports. And so we played every single sport imaginable. We played football, soccer, basketball, baseball. We tried lacrosse, we tried wrestling, we tried hockey, like anything that was an activity we were going to try. And then we kind of settled in on soccer, basketball, and baseball as our primary sports. Um, and through high school, we knew that we wanted to play multiple sports in college. And we had the idea of playing three sports. And because of that, we felt the Division III model was best suited for our needs, specifically athletically. Um, and but my mom, and I'm gonna be honest, God bless her, I did not want to go to Bible college. I had no real desire to do it, but that decision changed my life. Um, her deal with me is that she'd pay for the first 2 years of college if I went to Bible college. And I'm gonna be honest, fellas, I wanted to transfer my freshman year. I want to transfer my sophomore year. It was an adjustment for me. Not necessarily with the faith and the religious aspect of it. I'm very comfortable in my faith. Um, but it was a lot different than what I was used to. But that said, when I was being recruited, I'll be honest, the reason why I chose Lancaster Bible was because of the soccer program. It was because of Josh Beers and Luke Gibson. And who I am as a coach is directly impacted by their influence on me and how um, I tell our recruits at Bryn Athyn, I believe everyone wants to be seen, heard, and loved. And those three things, Coach Beers and Coach Gibson have done such a tremendous job for me in my life, even as I've grown into adulthood. This past Monday, I actually sat down with Coach Gibson we do a monthly connect where we just sit down for an hour and just talk in person because he's a coach at Cairn University right up the road. And so my recruitment story is just a little bit different because I knew I was going to go to a Bible college for the first 2 years. And so it was kind of just figuring out which one was the right fit. Coach Beers was amazing. My mom made me go on the visit, and then I loved it. And a lot of it just had to do with just people. And the people of Lancaster Bible were very special in just my whole development.
And then, like, you see like kids in high school who play multi-sports, it's kind of easier for them, especially if the season's kind of stopping and starting with each season. But in college, it seems like each sport is year round. So how did you manage to play three sports and then also kind of, you're pretty good at soccer. I think you're first team all conference as well. So how did you kind of juggle um, being good at all three?
Yeah, so my freshman year, I played soccer and basketball, and I had a good end of the year. My freshman year in soccer, I led the national tournament in goals, so I got the golden boot at the national tournament. As a freshman, scored four. I went into this national tournament with 2 goals. I scored four at the national tournament. Um, Basketball, I was backup point guard, played like 5 minutes a game. I don't know exactly. It had to be like 5 minutes a game. And we had an all-American point guard. Kevin Keltner was a dude, like just freaking amazing. Um, but I realized that it just wasn't necessarily the right fit for me. It wasn't because of the coach or anything like that. I was better at soccer and I thought that was going to be the thing that I should focus on. After my freshman year of basketball, I was kind of burned out. And so I chose not to play baseball. Baseball was never my favorite thing. It was never like something that I absolutely loved. I was just naturally good at it. But then my sophomore year, I had a really good, solid sophomore year in soccer. I chose not to play basketball, but I have an identical twin who got a high school coaching job his sophomore year of college. And he's like, Sean, I want you to work with our point guards. And I was like, no chance. And he's like, give me a day. That day turned to 6 years at Hartford Christian. But then I did play baseball my sophomore year, and I was all region in baseball in my first official season with the program. And then I played just soccer my junior year. So I took my junior year off from baseball and I played soccer and baseball my senior year. And so I was a 2-time all region player in soccer, first team all conference, and a 1-time all region baseball player.
So you just said three things that stuck out in my mind. First of all, I'm gonna have to tell these two guys right here. When he says dude, that means that's the man. Y'all realize that right? When you got dudes on your team, those are the men. All right. Soccer, I think we alluded to this a little bit last week when we was talking on the phone. The bridge between me and you guys is soccer because when I was in high school, soccer was like kicking around. And I told y'all last week, and I'll tell you again tonight, I ain't running no 100 yards and not scoring no goals. So that ain't happening. And then when you say baseball, my ears just perk up. And, I was a dude in baseball, so I love baseball. So, I'm glad to see the season kicking around now. I listened to I don't know if y'all listen to Beetle and Decker on Sirius XM on Mad Dog Radio, but they were destroying the Dodgers and the Cubs today, or Major League Baseball, because they have this soft opening and playing over in Japan for 2 games, and then going to restart the season next week when they come back. So I kind of agree and disagree a little bit, but like I said, you're a well-rounded athlete, and I don't know how you wound up in soccer, but God bless you.
No, it was a lot of fun. It was just something that um I like to compete. I like to compete and work my tail off. I wasn't ever like the most skilled in anything that I did, but I was raised that you work your absolute hardest. You don't make excuses. Winners find solutions, losers make excuses. If you're not playing, it's not the coach's fault, it's your fault. Like just you need to do everything you can to give your coach a reason to play you. So figure that out. And I'm sure some of my college coaches didn't love my commitment. I wasn't the most committed athlete. I look back and I have the thing I tell my guys, don't have that. I wish I did this at the end of your years. Um, and I wish like I didn't lift weights. I did minimal prep in the summer. It was more like for the love of the game. And that's for me when I look back, that's so disappointing about my college experiences. Like, did I work hard in the season? Yeah, you're not going to find someone that worked harder in the season. But how far could I have gone and how much more of an impact could I have had in winning if I was more selfless in the off season to work hard during those times for my teammates? But I had a wonderful experience. Not many people can say that they had the college career and experience that I did, and it helped shape me. I learned so much from those team building experiences and teammates and coaches.
So after your playing days are over, after you graduate, I mean, you have a degree in, I think, psychology and Bible.
Yeah.
Um, you're associate head coach at the school, Hartford Christian. Was there like a time where you're like, hey, what am I going to do now? Am I going to get a job, or am I going to coach full time? So how was that process for you?
Yeah. So our Rich's final year, we won the conference championship, first one in 17 years and first state championship in program history. He then got the job at Crossroads College in Rochester, Minnesota, which has since closed down. Um, I was accepted into the police academy in Howard County, and because I want to be an FBI agent, but you can't do that until you're 23 years old. Like, can't be a special agent. I graduated college when I was 21. So I was like, all right, well. I can go to the Howard County Police Department, get paid $52,000 starting salary, get good benefits. And if it doesn't work out, well, now you have a 20-year career that, in one of the best counties in Maryland, like it just makes a lot of sense. Um, and then I had the chance to be the head coach at Hartford Christian, and you had to pick one or the other. And I remember my dad, I told him I was going to be Hartford Christian's head coach. And that job paid $1,500. And excuse my French, but
I,
my dad said you're a fucking idiot. And
yeah,
and
I
I
knew he was
said
going to be real happy.
I understand, sir. My dad wasn't religious, and I said I understand, sir. Um, he's like, I'm not going to help you. I said, I'm not asking you for your help. I was like, all I'm asking is that I can still stay in the house. Uh, and so I ended up getting a job as a lot attendant at Fitzgerald Auto Mall in Frederick, Maryland. My mom was working there in the customer service department. Um, and so I was a lot attendant. I was commuting 350 miles a day to coach high school basketball, making $13 an hour as a lot attendant, and figuring out everything else that I could while trying to put my way through master's program at Concordia University, Irvine, because I knew I wanted to coach college basketball, but I thought, hey, being a head coach and getting these reps would be so great. And we did amazing things at Hartford Christian. Those 350 miles a day I bought a I bought a 2005 Honda Civic Hybrid. I went through two hybrid batteries um, in 2.5 years with that car, but she was all reliable. I can tell you that.
Hey, let me tell you something. We may have crossed paths a while back because it's kind of funny that, people mention stuff and it catches on. Well, that Frederick Auto Mall where you
Yeah.
worked at, I actually used to chase hailstorms for a living with a company called Dent Wizard. So I spent
Yes.
many a day
Yes.
on
And
that
it
lot.
killed. It
Yeah,
killed our
exactly.
lot. Oh
Exactly.
my
Ain't
goodness.
that crazy?
Yes, that is nuts. What a small world,
I'm
man.
telling you.
That's crazy. Because I still remember. So I wasn't when I just remember all the hail damage. And I
Oh,
just remember the GMs were like so freaking pissed. And I understand, like, it's a lot of
oh,
inventory. Like, the inventory was
it was crazy.
ridiculous.
And y'all's inventory, guys, let me tell y'all, they got more vehicles than you can see. It's just like an ocean full of cars and trucks out there on that lot. Is amazing. It is totally amazing. Greg, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I know you getting bored with me.
You're good. No, I was listening. But so you're traveling a lot for the school to be the head coach, and you're kind of just making it. But it seems like whatever you're doing on the court was working because you guys, I think, played for the Maryland Christian Tournament Division 1 championship for the first time ever. You
Yeah.
win the Bob Jones University National Invitational Tournament.
Yeah.
Kind of about that success and kind of moving on after that.
Yeah, so it was we wanted to raise the bar, and it was a credit to the foundation that my brother laid with the first 3 years, but we wanted to build it to bigger and better and leave it better than how we found it. And we did that. I was tied to an AAU program in the county that was able to get guys that were interested in a private Christian education and they were great. They were A honor roll, B honor roll kids. They weren't getting any financial aid to go to Hartford Christian. They were, you know, they would take the bus in the morning, and I'd drive them home from practice in the evening times. And we did some amazing things. We won three more conference championships, the BJU NIT. And that final year when we lost in the state championship, we started four sophomores and a junior, and so we were going to have everyone come back. Um, but all good things must come to an end, and it felt like it was time to try and move forward in my career. And I think our guys were ready for a new challenge for themselves too, as far as like maybe potentially transferring back to public school. And so a job came available at Hood College with Chad Dickman, and a coaching friend, a high school coaching friend of mine, Anthony Biggers, made a call for me on my behalf, and that was what allowed me to get the call from Coach Dickman. And I still remember I was on Fitzgerald Auto Malls. I was in a Chevy Silverado facing Bowman's Lane as I'm taking the call.
That's
And
awesome.
Chad's on vacation. He's down in South Carolina at his parents' beach house somewhere, and we're talking. And then he called me 3 days later, offered me the job, and he told me, he's like, it doesn't pay a lot. And I said, okay, that's fine. I said, respectfully, how much does it pay? And he's like, $3,500. I said,
That's $1 million.
man, that's a raise. Go
Exactly.
from 1,500 to 3,500. You shorten my commute by 250 miles. Where do I sign on the dotted line? I'll do whatever you need me to do. And and so it was really cool. And then, did 2 years there while I was still as a lot attendant, and then was able to parlay that to a full-time admission job in the admissions office. And I tell you what, Greg, that was probably the most impactful experience for me as a coach, was being in the admissions office, because I learned how to everything about financial aid. I learned everything about the admission process. I learned all the ins and outs of how to navigate this entire recruiting funnel, right? Of getting people interested, getting them through the application process, what the timeline is, how to get more money on a package because we're a private college, and all of that. And I'm a better coach and recruiter because of that experience. Um, and then did 2 more years at Hood College, so 4 total years at Hood College, and was able to parlay that to Bryn Athyn. But Hood College was such a pivotal growth time for me, mainly because when you're young, and Greg and Devin, you guys look young. If you don't mind me asking, how old are y'all?
34.
34?
28.
28. All right. So
20,
Greg, you and I are very
29,
similar. I'm 33. All
Oh,
right.
29.
go.
Okay. And so when I was 25, and that's when I got the job at Hood College, you couldn't tell me anything. I thought I was God's gift to basketball. I thought I was better than Wonder Bread. All right. And I get into the first practice October 15th, and I felt like I was a fraud. October 15th, 2016. I felt like I was a fraud. And I told Chad, like, it's a lot. Like, I didn't feel like I was able to teach at the right level. I didn't think I was, and I was so worried that these guys were going to see me as a fraud. And it was, and I had to be vulnerable. I had to be real with them. And one of the things that Chad said that I will take with me forever is I'm not going to define your role by what you can't do. I'm going to define your role by what you can do. And he asked me, what are my strengths? And I said, well, I really believe I'm a great recruiter. I believe that I have a wonderful leadership development program that can help build our culture. And I think I'm great with social media. And so he's like, yep, let's go ahead. You take all of that. And then I found ways to bring additional value. So I did analytics reports. I did analytics reports from practice with different things of like lineups, offensive rating, defensive rating, efficiency ratings for each individual players, turnover percent, like everything that, Synergy wasn't, because we didn't have the full Synergy pack. And so it's just like everything that he wanted, I got, and I sent into an Excel spreadsheet every day. And so it was really cool because then we built the Let It Fly brand, which Hood still is known as, when people hear Hood College, they know they're going to shoot a bunch of threes and they're going to play fast and get up and down and have one of the most efficient offenses in the country, which they had the number one efficient offense in the country, according to D3 Data Sports, I think is the Instagram handle. And we we recruited our tails off. There was so much freaking talent that we were able to get. Like Mason Wang's an All-American. Mason and his twin brother Evan Wang was all region, so we had multiple all region guys. Um, and they ended up winning a championship the year. So COVID canceled the year after I left. But that team, they brought everyone back. And pretty much, I think 8 of the 9 guys that played in that championship game, we were responsible, and I was responsible for their recruitment, which was really cool to see them finish that job. Um, but we were able to go from a mid-level program to one of the best programs in the MAC. And now Hood is consistently a top program in that league. And they got into the top 25 again this year. Like Coach Dickman has it rolling, and they're going to be really good again next year. So I'm really happy for those guys.
So I'll go ahead and try to cut to the chase. So where does the conversation with Bryn Athyn actually come in at? I mean, are
Yeah.
you still at Hood and just doing your thing? And I mean, according to your bio, you did everything but mop the floor at Hood. So, but does somebody just say, "Hey, I need a coach," or how does this come up?
Yeah, so I told Chad that the only way I was going to leave Hood is if it was for a head coaching job. And at the time I was married, and so there was a couple rules that my ex-wife wanted to have. Is she wanted it to be in a major city, wanted to be a pay increase, um, and wanted to be full time. So it's like, all right, that all seems really reasonable. Bryn Athyn opened, and so when I saw it open, it's like, all right, when I look at a job, I don't look at like if it's a bad job, good job. It's like what are the variables? So the first thing I look at is how young is the program, all right, and what's the history. Bryn Athyn didn't have any real history. It was really young when I got there. It was 6 years old when I got there. So there's a lot of chance to build something from the ground up, which is like really enticing for me. When I look at the league, we were at the time in the CSAC ended up transferring over to the United East. It's like, all right, well, this league, there's great coaches, but I feel like we can win the league with the right recruits and the right X's and O's. And I felt like we could win the league in the first 4 years. That's what I felt, and that's what I told every recruit that we recruited. And then from there, it's like, all right, well, does the administration want to win? What are the things that the school has to offer? Is it going to be an attractive place? And being just outside of Philadelphia, that's a very attractive market for a lot of students, especially students of my pipeline in Baltimore that they want to get away from Baltimore. They go up 95 and now they're right outside of Philly. And so I basically told Chad, like, look, I want to go for this. I'd really appreciate if you send an email to the AD, letting them know that I would be a good candidate. And I had one other person email the AD with my resume. I applied and I ended up getting an interview. The interview process was really weird because it was during COVID. It was all through Zoom. I never stepped foot on campus. Um, and I'll be honest, right? So during my interview process, the AD that started the interview process resigned. And so then there was an interim AD, Dean Nelson, and she took over. And honestly, God, if Dean Nelson wasn't the interim AD, I wouldn't have gotten a job. And I know that. And that isn't a discredit to any of the guys that interviewed with me during those times. It's not a discredit to the previous AD. I just didn't fit the profile what the original AD wanted. The original AD wanted someone with scholarship experience. Like every hire he had Division One experience. I was the only one in the final group that had no Division One experience. I was also the only one in the group that had no head coaching experience too. Um, and yet I was able to get the job. And I'm so grateful for the fact that Bill O'Neill, Dean Nelson, Renee Rosenfeld, Katie Fitzgerald, Robin Cooper, Grant Starr, all these people that were on the hiring committee saw what I was passionate about, which was people and how a people centric, transformational coaching centric philosophy could help us do something so special here at Bryn Athyn. And so that's kind of how I got into the mix. And I'm grateful. It changed my life.
I'm gonna ask you a quick question, and maybe I'm stepping way out of my league here.
Yep.
So when you take this job, I'm sure coming from a Bible school helps you, and I'm sure I guess I'll just ask, did Emmanuel Swedenborg, did he ever come into play at this facility? I mean, is that something that was a prerequisite? Because I'm learning as I go, so I had to do a little background. So I was
Yeah.
just trying to find out exactly, what the background was for Bryn Athyn, and I understand it's um, a general church for the New Jerusalem, and
Yeah.
Emmanuel had everything to do with the teaching. So if you could
Yeah.
speak a little bit about that, I'd appreciate it because that'll
For
help me
sure.
tremendously.
So I think to simplify, and I'm not the most equipped to speak on this, but to simplify the new church philosophy, it has an element of you want to treat others well, and you want to be a light to them, and you want to be a great neighbor, um, and you want to do good works on top of, having faith in, Christ and all those things. So my religious background certainly helped, but it wasn't a prerequisite for me to get the job. Um, a lot of our coaching staff, like I would say, there's a handful of coaching staff that would identify as Christian Protestant, and then we have a Christian Catholic population in our coaching staff. So it's unique in that way. What I loved about Bryn Athyn, and I'll be honest, because of my experience at Lancaster Bible College, I was a little reserved initially about jumping back into a Christian college environment. But what I loved is how it was more about the people and meeting people where they're at. I'm not here to tell anyone how to live or anything like that. I want the way that I live my life and how I treat people to shine through. And if people are interested in knowing, like, hey, Sean, why are you this way? I can share my story, and I'm completely comfortable sharing my story. And what I loved about Bryn Athyn and what I still love about Bryn Athyn is how they want to meet people where they're at. And I think that's the most powerful thing that you can actually do is rather than trying to beat someone over the head and bludgeon them with your doctrine and philosophy. Let's extend an olive branch and have a conversation and just get to know someone.
Amen.
I spoken like a true psychology major. Meet them where they're at. I was a psych major too, so I was like, I heard that, I was like, that is a psych major if I know one. So,
Appreciate
um,
that.
so I mean, you mentioned you not having any D1 coaching experience, but like you're assistant coach on a D3 level. I mean, you're
Yeah.
like Big Ray said, you're doing everything. You're
Yeah.
recruiting. You're probably helping with like game notes. You're helping with probably laundry and whatnot. But
Yeah.
how's that grind, those years at Hood help you today as a head coach there at Bryn Athyn?
I'm doing everything in Bryn Athyn too. So it really just, what, Chad is a superstar at training coaches to be ready to take that next jump. And without his training as far as like recruiting and program process, like I learned so much. It's stressful being a head coach. And I tell you what, I wish I had more empathy for Chad in the position that he was in when I was an assistant coach. There was never any bitterness on my part, but there's things that you'll never understand as an assistant coach until you're a head coach, right? There was 6 inches to the right of the bench. That seat, that comes with a lot of pressure. Everything falls on you. And so the fact that he trusted me to do so much with recruiting, with scouting reports, with um, skill development, culture development, like I'm grateful for that because it gave me so many reps to be better for Bryn Athyn. Um, at Bryn Athyn, I had to find myself though. Right? I had to find myself outside of Chad Dickman in the way that he did things. And I loved his X's and O's. I loved the ball screen stuff that he does. I loved the zone. I loved the press. But I had to kind of find where I liked certain elements of it and then put my spin on it. And I think over the last 4 years, you can see the difference in the Bryn Athyn style of play for those that have watched us is where we were at year one to where we're at year four. Hood plays all zone. We play 20% zone. We're way more man to man. We used to be the one of the highest pressing teams in the nation my first 2 years at Bryn Athyn. We don't press anymore. Like not this year we didn't. Next year I don't know. We'll see. But we pressed 7% of the time this year, but we had a top 30 turnover percentage in the country at the press. So when we did it, we were really good at it. So we're turning people over at a 30% clip when we did press. So just like the the preparation I had from Hood was really great. And then it just kind of added a bunch of things into my toolbox. And then I had to figure out what tools I want to put in my belt for this job. And then that belt changes with each team because every team's going to be different. I don't care if you bring back 7 guys. 7 guys in 2023, 2024 can be a lot different from their experiences from that year coming into 24, 25. And so next year, like it'll be a completely different group, no matter if it's a bunch of guys that are coming back or not.
Well,
So,
Coach, I got it.
Coach,
Oh, go ahead, Evan.
so you talk about, you're the only guy for that Bryn Athyn job without any head coaching experience as well. When you first take on that job, especially being only the second coach in program history, did you still have that same sort of feeling that, that maybe you're a little bit fraudulent for the job, or do you feel like your preparation at Hood helped you to be a little bit more comfortable in that position?
Great question. I did not feel like I was fraudulent. I felt like because I had so much control over my environment, I can live and die off those results. I'm a big believer that you got to define it to develop it. And so being able to have our 4 core values of connection, joy, competitiveness, selflessness, I believed in that. Um, I will say this, we it was a lot harder to climb the mountain than I ever thought it would be. Um, and I'm grateful for the journey. I'm grateful for the heartache that we had. If you count the bubble year, so in the bubble year, we were able to play 8 exhibitions. We had 25 days that we were able to do anything with basketball in the 2020, 2021 season. Um, we had 16 practices and 8 games from like March, like mid-February to late March. And we went 0-8 and we lost by 53 times. And then we started my first official year 1-13. And I tell you what, we felt every single one of those losses. Um, I uh I ended up losing like 35 pounds my first full year as a head coach. And I realized I had to take care of my mental health and my approach in how I just dealt with failure. I remember I started seeing a therapist in January of 2022 because like the failure was crippling. And it was failure of like my expectations because Devin, it's a great question. Like, did I feel fraudulent? I never felt fraudulent, but I had never failed like that ever in my life, ever. Because for me, my parents always would say, like, getting out of the car, you're a winner and you're a leader. That's what Westerlunds are. So, like, in my life, I have never felt like a loser. And the scoreboards, and I tell my guys, the scoreboard never validates the process. But damn it, we are losing. And it was so frustrating. And on top of that, dealing with the personal issues in my personal life, all of this stuff is just crashing down. And it was difficult. But I told the guys, I don't need to know who wants to eat at the table when the light's on. I need to know who wants to be with me when we're in the trenches, when it's muddy, when we have nothing, when we're trying to scrape together rice out of a burning pot. That's who I want with us. And credit to the guys. Like I think of Haybert Lucci. I think of Mikey Jones. I think of Anthony Burr. I think of guys that planted the seeds for Bryn Athyn basketball, and they were never able to sit underneath that shade. But you know what shade they got to sit under? They all came back for when we won the championship this past March. And for them to be able to enjoy in that moment because I'm so grateful for their loyalty to the mission, the vision of Bryn Athyn basketball, because none of it is possible without them. There is no stones that and steps that we skipped. We went 7-18 my first year. We had 11 single digit losses. We played meaningful basketball until the last week of the season, which means that we had a chance, an outside chance of making playoffs till the last week of the season. Then we got eliminated. My second year, we go 11-14. We set the wins record for the program. Great. 11-14, still not good enough. And we get eliminated on the final day of the regular season at our rival at Karen. And I didn't like how the year ended. I didn't like the mentality of the guys. It's like, all right, we're going to bring in a whole new group. Well, after that year, our sophomore guard, who was first team all conference, Jamal Kennedy, he's transferring up to Division II. So we lose him. We lose our best big man. He's two-time all conference guy, all-time steals leader, all-time rebounder. We lose our best shooter, who's our all-time leading three-point shooter. We lose our second leading scorer from the previous year, and we lose our all-time assist man. So we lose 5 of our top 6 guys. And I tell you what, that put a fire underneath my tail. I get that FU mode where it's like, all right, we're gonna go prove everyone wrong. And we go in and we bring the best class that we've ever brought in. So while Montrell Horsey did not play this year, he played last year. He's a Division I drop down. So we brought in Montrell Horsey, Jalen Jackson, Jalen Parker, Jakir Hampton, Keith Bullock, Isaac Marshall. We bring in those guys right there. And between that group, they had 8 all-conference guys. There's multiple 1,000-point scorers in that group, and they completely flipped our program. And we go 17-9, and we lose out the regular season championship on the final day of the regular season. We held first place the entire year until the final day of the regular season, and we lose out on a buzzer beater. And then we go into the conference semifinal, and we lose on a buzzer beater again. Wow. And devastating. And I knew, like, man, if this group comes back, we can do something special. But I didn't know. I didn't know if guys were going to go into the portal or not. And a couple guys wanted to explore, and I gave them a deadline. They all decided to come back. And they came back this year. And I have the shirt on. It says, finish the job. Finish the job. That's the only thing that matters. And we started out, like, really poor. Started out 2-6. Had to let go a bunch of guys, right? I have one rule. Don't be a Richard Head. Like, that's it. Like, like that's my big thing. Don't be a Richard Head. Just be a good teammate. And guys just didn't fit what we wanted it to be. And once we got rid of those guys, we ended up finishing the year. If you count the Hampden Syndey loss, we finished the year, I think, 18-3. So it completely changed our program, but we also changed our schedule. We had 2 days of practice, 2 days of culture, 2 days of games, and 1 day off. And the culture days where we were in the film room and we're talking about, like, what is a winner? What does it mean to have confidence? When is ego bad? How can we get to know each other, right? Like, we can't be in a low trust environment. We got to create a high trust environment. So that way the performance that I know that you all can do can be there. And so, I'm grateful for the journey. I never felt like a fraud, but I'm going to be honest. There's always going to be doubt that creeps in on a journey like that, and it can be very lonely at times. But I've been able to surround myself with people that have been able to support me, love me, and hold me accountable.
Well, I'll just say this, before Big Greg gets into his question here, I'll just say this, Coach. I mean, one thing that really stood out to me after that Hampden Syndey game when we were doing the interview is just, how well spoken and how respectful Keith and you and Jalen were as well. It just, yeah, I know those kids were hurt. I mean, especially being
Mhm.
seniors, losing that game like that after everything they had accomplished. But you really couldn't tell it, to be honest with you. I mean, they just seemed just gracious for the moment,
Yeah.
and super respectful kids. And you can just tell that you're doing things the right way up there. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot.
And Devin, I'm gonna follow up with that Hampton Sydney game in just a moment, but Gregory always calls me the doom and gloom guy. So, Coach, here we go. So I was just looking at some of the things,
Yep.
going down the points. I mean, it's pretty even when you look at points. I mean, you are outscoring them by point 0.3, 72 to 71-7. So no real big
Yep.
differential there. Um, 3-point field goal percentage is basically the same.
Yep.
Your opponents have shot about 70 some odd more than you guys have. Free throws. Man, what a disparaging fact against the opponent. I
Mm.
mean, you're almost 200 more shots against or taken and almost 150 shots made at the free throw line. Getting out rebounded throughout the season, and the assists are a little bit on the low side,
Yep.
but you steal the ball quite a bit. You making 9 steals a game and then 2.3 blocks a game. So I guess what I was trying to find out is your philosophy for your guards to get it as close to the basket. If not, they score, get it to you big guys such as oh my God, Jalen. Is it Jalen?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jalen
Jalen Parker.
Parker.
Yeah.
Yep.
So somebody like him, is that the philosophy? If not, get to the line if you can't score.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I feel like our numbers, the first 5 games like really skewed those numbers. I thought in conference play was a much better reflection of who we were. Because even in those games, like against Roanoke, I think we shot like almost 49% from the field against Roanoke, who's a really good defensive team. Um, and so I think from like those last like 20, if we played 29 games, those last 23 games are about like 47, 48% from the field, about 36% from three. Our assists went up because we started moving the ball more. What we want to do is we want to dictate tempo. That's the number one thing that we want to do. And so it really depends on the matchup of who we're going against, if we want to push the pace or not. Um, typically we want to try and create numerical advantages in space. And so if we feel that we can run and go get a layup, then we're going to do that. We're going to try and score fast. But if we don't have a numerical advantage in transition, then let's play some half court. Because you know what teams don't like doing a ton? They don't like being bludgeoned in the post. And so we
Yep.
kind of shifted our play styles. We went on throughout the year to try and go a little bit more high low, a little bit more cross screens, block to block screens, and try and establish a post. And it shows in JP's numbers the style play shift. Like in the playoffs, he averaged 19, 13, and 6. Um, and so um, we want the best shot available. And our team is not a team that is a chucking team. We can't chuck threes. It's not our strength. And if you look at our numbers, our worst 3-point percentage games are when we're taking 27 plus threes for the most part. It's just not who we are. We're playing against Penn State Brandywine at home, January 25th. I think we took like 27, 28 threes. And I'm just like, they're giving up the skip three. That is what they're giving up. They are a help heavy, no middle, and giving up the skip. And what are we doing? We're going to take the skip three. When in reality, drive the freaking skip, backdoor it, and then if they take the back door away, then we take the second available three. It's like it's simple stuff. Um, but we want to try and put as much rim pressure as possible. And by doing, and we have typically good free throw shooters. Most of the guys that get fouled are typically pretty solid. I think J Jack's 70%, Keith's floating around 67, Jakir's 88. Will, I think, is just under, either right at 70 or just under. JP's the only one that could stand to improve a little bit. But philosophy, it's really like, what do we feel like the other team's weakness is, and let's just expose that. And we had a roster where we had a ton of guys that could do a bunch of different things. We like posting up our guards. Why? Because most teams don't post up their guards. They don't work on post defense. We will try and put our 5-man in space a ton because JP's active enough and most big men don't want to get too far away from the basket. So it kind of just depends. Like each year is going to be different. Each personnel is going to be different, but we really just want to play efficient basketball.
Well, Coach, you mentioned something about pounding the ball down low, and I'll be honest with you. my earlier days when you guys were still being thought about, I guess is what I want to say, was, watching people like Ralph, watching people like Patrick Ewing, watching, you name it. And those guys wanted to play on the boxes.
Yeah.
They wanted to go, get as many points as, as close as you could, if not go to the line and earn it that way. But, I don't know when it took place. I don't know where it took place, but all of a sudden you got 7 footers, wanting to shoot the three ball. And, you know, if you can, you can, but you see it more often in my book, and maybe I'm totally wrong and y'all correct me, but you see it a lot more in the European leagues and
Mm.
overseas. And I guess when we kind of, I don't know, do you want to call it westernized? When we brought in more Europeans, I guess that's when it started taking off a little bit more. And I just missed that pounding
Yeah.
ground. I mean, you know what I mean? I just missed
Yeah.
that. But
So
um,
I think it comes down to like spacing. Like you want to try and create spacing. So if you can space your five, man, it opens up more driving gaps and things of that nature. Um, when I'm evaluating how do you win the NCAA tournament, right? How do you beat the best teams on your schedule? Um, and the best teams in the NCAA for the most part are some of the slower teams. And for the most part, they're going to be playing through the post or through the elbows, right? Elbows and blocks. And, I like pretty basketball but, we're not going to be Hood College. That's not who we are at Bryn
right.
Athyn. Those aren't the guys that we're getting. And that's not to say I don't want those guys, but I really enjoy the way that we're playing. And I credit Mark Seidenberg, my assistant coach, who was at Wilson College. He took Wilson College to two NCAA tournaments. He helped me kind of see a different perspective of basketball because at the end of the day, I believe in our talent. But I think when you play a slower game, right? Well, now you're telling a coach, hey, come win a game in the 60s, right? Our perfect number is 72. That's our perfect number. Truth be told, 70 points is our perfect number. This group that we've had over the last 2 years, when we've scored 70 points, I believe we are 38-3. I'm pretty
Wow.
sure. We do
That's
not
awesome.
lose when we score 70 points. Um, and so for me, if we can be 70 to 65, well, now I'm telling this other coach, now you got to coach basketball. Now you got to get into your bag, all right, and call sets and be able to be good on your rotations, be good on your timeouts. And we're used to that because that's the way that we play. Um, and that doesn't mean we can't play fast in moments. That doesn't mean we can't have pretty possessions and ball movement and things like that. Those things are built in. But I think there's a way that you can play efficient basketball by getting shots closest to the hoop and trying to exploit matchup. So there's going to be times where we're playing a little bit faster. There's going to be times where we're taking a few more threes, but um, we really want to try and put as much pressure on the rim as possible.
Well, we were at the game as our credentials were through Hampton Sydney. I never mentioned that to you at all. But, and the other thing is I was going to say is throughout the year, and Devin, he's getting ready to laugh because he knows what I'm getting ready to say, because he says we can start a drinking game for every time I've said this, but we got caught up in the hype of the ODAC, and I said
Yeah.
it a million times to every coach I talked to and to some of the players that we considered the ODAC the SEC of D3.
Hmm.
And I feel like we kind of got caught up in that a little bit. And then because, Gregory wasn't at that game, the other three of us, in some capacity were there, but,
Yeah.
of course you were coaching. But I sit back and I look at that game and I really feel that there was two turning points of that game. And one major thing on your side was the fact that Jalen just could not stay on the floor.
Yep.
I think he picked up two quickies, and then I think I don't know, maybe towards the end of the first half or
Picked up his
right at the
third.
beginning of the second half, picked up his third, and
And fourth was in the beginning of the second half.
yeah. So
Yep.
I mean, he's I think that's one of the biggest turning points of the entire ball game. I mean, I didn't say you would win the ball game. I said it was a turning point where,
Yeah.
when it's 102 to 66, it's only so much can take place there. But I just felt like if he could have stayed in that ball game and covered that paint a little bit more, then it would have been a different ball game. The other thing I was going to mention was that I don't know if anybody had any control over besides the heat checker was when McCowan hit those three or four straight three-pointers when right at the beginning of the second half. I mean, that was just I don't know where
Yeah.
that came from, but all he had to do was throw the ball up and it was going in. So
Yeah. So I think for us, if I could go back again, we would have came out man to man the way that we did, I thought that put them in a little bit of a difficult position. I don't think they expected us to necessarily face guard Brazil the way that we were. And I would have switched right over to our 21 zone. In 9 possessions, I think Hampden Syndey shot, 0.667 points per possession. They had seen the lowest number of zone possessions in the country at that point. Um, and I wish I would have done that because I think it would have protected JP a little bit more with the foul trouble. Um, and then the type of threes that they're getting aren't necessarily driving kick threes. They're swing threes, which are tougher to hit. And then if they hit 15 of them, then we tip our hat to them. And I think we could have stood to call a few more sets. I should have went high ball screen and to bring the big out a little bit more because Hampden Sydney likes to switch and then it just spaces them up a little bit more. So there's definitely some things that I think could have done differently. I thought for us to be down 12 at half was fortunate. I didn't love the 2 threes. I didn't love the three that McGowan hit late in the shot clock when we lost him, right wing. And I hated the three that we gave up to Bizel at the top of the key and we lost him. It's like, come on. And so I thought it could have been a 6 point game. Um, Once we got that turnover, right? Like J Jack should have just called a timeout or just taken the 5 second call. Live ball turnovers are like literally the worst thing possible. And they go down and hit a three. And we're just uphill battle from there. And credit to Hampden Sydney, credit to Coach Kimbrough and their guys. I mean, they did an excellent job. McGowan shot the heck out of it and he did what he did. And um, we were just, it was tough. But those are things that when I look back differently, I don't and I could be wrong. And people can say, Coach West, you're freaking crazy, and you might be right. You got to be a little bit delusional to be in this line of work. I don't think necessarily our top six was that much separation from a talent standpoint to Hampton Sydney's. I think there was more depth. I think they were stronger. I think they were more focused and had the championship DNA and discipline for that moment, and we weren't. But I think talent, it wasn't a talent issue for us. And so you know, Coach Kimber outcoached me. I got to be better. And when we go back to the national tournament next year, I'm going to be better for it, and my guys are going to be better for it, and they're going to be better prepared. But credit to them and what they did. They gave us a good old fashioned butt whooping.
Well, I don't know if you remember this or not. I kind of I kind of try to keep up with each bucket or whatever. But of course, you come out, you're leading 3-0 right off the get-go.
Yep.
With the first time out at 15:41, you're up 7-5.
I think
And
we had
then
a 2 point lead at the second media timeout too.
exactly 11:54, as well as getting ready to say you were up 14-12. And then
We
they,
go a 8-0 run. I call timeouts 20 and 14. And I think then we get an and one
look,
or something like that. We get it to
yep.
2016, I think.
Yep, Devin's laughing because he knows I try to keep up with all these runs and everything. So yeah, so that was, but I mean, Gregory wasn't there to see it, but we're sitting there going, who are these guys? And
Yeah.
because and that's basically what it was. Who are these guys? And they're sticking right with us, and this is all we know is Hampton Sydney. So,
Yeah.
um, but look, I want to ask you a question,
Yeah.
and this has nothing to do with your game, but it's just things we're hearing right now, and I've got my own philosophy, of course, but how come, unless I just totally missed the boat and I didn't see any pressers or anything in the news or whatever, but how come with D3 basketball, we don't hear all the griping and all the uh, we got screwed. Somebody didn't make the top 64. I mean, in my book, D3 sports is the most purest form of, if you want to call it still NCAA sports. But why is it just a money thing? Is that where this thing starts, jumping out at everybody for the big dances? I mean, can you answer it? I mean, personally, did you hear anybody outside of Bryn Athyn that didn't make it into the 64 that was complaining that they didn't get a bid in
So
D3?
I think the great thing about D3 is there's this metric called MPI. I think before when they did the committee with the regionally ranked opponents, it left so much subjectivity, um, where it's like, well, someone can view this way, someone can view this that way. MPI, they literally just put the game results into a metric and it just simplifies everything. Um, and So like we got a 15 seed line in the bracket. I think we're number 61 in MPI. And, had we won more games at the beginning of the year, we didn't lose we didn't lose to Washington College on the road by 14. We didn't get blasted by McDaniel by 20 and blasted by Roanoke, blasted by Susquehanna, right? Like we just kept them closer and would have gotten a better draw. But you get what you deserve in this world. And so we didn't earn something greater than that. And I think the great thing about Division 3 is that because the MPI takes a lot of the questions out of it, and we can trust that. And I think that's where it really comes down to. And I'm a big believer, like, our conference, some of the coaches were complaining a little bit about like strength, because strength of schedule in your conference opponents is a tiebreaker. And some of the coaches were like, well, I don't have control over that. The conference makes my schedule. I'm old school. Win the damn games. Win the games. If you win the games, you don't have anything to worry about. And so, like, we were in a position this year for Bryn Athyn that had we lost to Penn State Harrisburg on the road on January or February 13th, they would have gotten the regular season championship, right? Like, they would have had the tiebreaker over us because they played a tougher conference schedule, even if we've both gone 14-2. And so it's like, we can complain about that or just freaking win. Like, isn't that the like part of when you compete is win? And so I think with D3, there's not as much griping with that. I think there's going to be some griping about, hey, why can't we get more flights, right? Like, why can't we get a certain type of bracket? And like those can be arguments that can be made. Um, but I think some of it too is if you want a better seed, win more games. I
Coach,
just try and simple. Maybe that's not a very nuanced take. That's just what I think.
last two for me. So I want to go back to kind of recruiting. I remember you stepping on Devin's toes here, but um, you go 18 and 32 your first 2 years there, and you kind of mentioned having this FU attitude after that, and you go 37 and 18 the last couple of years. But
Yeah.
going back to the recruiting part, I mean, you mentioned kind of when you're going to 18, 32, your own life is kind of going through some turmoil as well, and kind of hardened you. Do you
Yeah.
feel like going through that during that time kind of helped you on the recruiting trail, recruiting kids from like the inner cities who may be going through their own struggles and stuff like that? And
Yeah, so I went to so truth be told, I went to an all black high school. I went to a school in Baltimore. And me and my twin brother were the only two white kids in our class. There are some homeschool like kids that were part of the umbrella program that were in our graduating class, but as far as like who my classmates were, those were my classmates. Being able to navigate those rooms have always been something that I've been really good at. Um, I think when you look at your life experiences, everyone's looking for something to connect with someone. Um, and I think of, one of my guys, Quinn, and he lost his mother literally 3 weeks before his freshman year of college. And it was tough. I still remember their recruiting visit and us getting lunch together and everything. And but I can relate to Quinn because I lost my father when I was 23 years old. And so um when you have that connection and you have those things like shared struggle, shared pain, that's the adhesive that can connect us together. And so the things with my personal life and everything like that, like was it something that I could potentially talk to about the guys about understanding that like life's not always going to be easy? Certainly. I think with recruiting, our staff and myself specifically have always been able to do a really good job of getting high level talent to drop down because 10 of our 12 guys this year are transfers. Um, and so being able to get them is just, I'm super blunt. I'm really transparent. What you see is what you get. You're never going to be able to say I lied to you. You're never going to be able to say that I blew smoke or anything like that. Like you might not like my delivery, but at the end of the day, my job is not to tell you what you want to hear. My job is to tell you what you need to hear. And what you need to hear is going to be important because if you don't want to hear this now in the recruiting process, you're not going to hear it when you're being coached.
Preach on,
Um,
brother. Preach on.
and
Amen.
so for me, when I go and recruit guys, I'm very direct. Um, I do try and make sure that I validate their experience from wherever they're coming from. Because like I'm gonna be honest, if they're transferring, it's because of for whatever reason. Um, sometimes they're gonna say they didn't get the opportunity. Sometimes it's gonna be, wasn't the right fit, whatever it might be. Um, a lot of our guys are on their fourth or fifth school when they come to Bryn Athyn. And so that can be red flags for some people, but we've been able to make it work because again, like we're so big on just trying to build the relationship. And I don't tell guys they're going to play. Like I don't guarantee playing time. But there are three things that set me off: entitlement, lack of competitiveness, and if you're going to be late. Like those are three things that are going to set me off. So if I'm telling you you're going to play, then I'm making you entitled. No, like F that. Go earn it. You get what you earn in this world. You get what you deserve. And so I think for a lot of guys, they buy into that. And then on top of that, because we've had the most all conference guys in our conference over the last 2 years, we've had the most talented roster over the last 2 years. Some guys, like we've lost out on recruits that have said no because they're like, well, you have too many guys. Cool, you're ducking smoke. Because if you look at Kentucky, you look at the best Duke, you look at the best Division I teams. Look at freaking the best Division III teams. Look at NYU. They're freaking loaded. All right. The best teams want to play with the best guys. And if you're about winning, which is what it's got to be about, then you're not going to care about your individual numbers because you can have individual success, right, when you're winning. And that's why we've had two guys like Keith Bullock and Jalen Jackson are both all conference guys for us. They both average 9 points a game. Winning matters. And so with the recruiting process, because of my directness, because of also my ability to be vulnerable with them and be open, I think that they see the value in that and there's alignment in just how we are. And then like I recruit guys that have the similar chip on their shoulder. I really struggle with guys that don't want to go out there and go get it. It just it's hard. And you guys saw me on the sideline, like I'm a nut, right? Like I'm intense. I still remember in the media timeout when we were up 14-12, like I'm yelling to my guys, and I'm so glad my family was up high in the bleachers because they couldn't hear me, yelling obscene things like we're effing here, we effing belong. Like just let's go out there and keep showing that we belong. And so I think the guys that they really connect with my message, they connect with my energy. And then you're never going to find a guy that played at Bryn Athyn that has felt lied to. They might not have always loved their total experience, but every guy has gotten the opportunity that I promised them.
And then the last one, part of that is, you're losing, I think, 7 seniors. So how much are you hitting the road, and what's the plan? Is it to get the best players you can get, or is it find the best players for the system, or how do you go about that?
So it's interesting with the JUCO rule that may pass. Like I'm hearing rumors it could pass for Division II, Division III in May or June. We get 5 guys back, and so
Oh,
now
wow.
we're freaking loaded again.
Oh
Um,
boy.
but we'll see how that happens and what happens. We have 3 commitments right now. We have a really talented JUCO wing that's 6'4", smooth lefty. We have 2 high school kids. We're gonna plan to replace the guys that we lose. And so we lose 7. We're gonna bring in. I think we'll bring in probably 9 because I'd like to have a roster of 15. Um, and we'll go bring in, more transfers. Like that's just we'll bring in like 3 high school kids and 7 transfers. I think that's a what did Rick Pitino say? You can't win a league with high school kids. And I'll be honest, man, like high school kids, we have 2 really, really special high school kids committed right now. Like Ryan Hankins from St. John's Catholic Prep and Aiden Barone from down y'all's way, actually, in Virginia. I think they're 2 special kids that are gonna have wonderful careers here. I think you have to be wired a certain way. To be drawn to our program and for me to be drawn to you to bring you into our program as a high school kid. Um, but we're gonna go back to back. Like you guys are gonna be seeing me in the national tournament again, seeing Bryn Athyn in the national tournament again. You're gonna be seeing the guys, and we're gonna go back to back. That's the goal, right? The bar has been set: 20 wins, 15 wins in conference, 17 game active conference win streak. We want to go 16-0 in conference, and we want to go win 21 games. Whether or not we do it, we'll see. But like that's the goal, and um, so when we hit the recruiting trail, we're gonna try and hit the portal, hit the JUCO recruiting trail, and try and get a couple more high school kids committed and load up and do it again.
Coach, I forgot to tell you I love your barber. Forgot to tell you
Pre- I'm actually going to get a cut tomorrow. My man Pete, he's going to set me up.
that. No, I've been thinking about that the whole time. I was just like, yeah, we got to tell him that. Go ahead, Dev. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say to add to your best friend comment earlier. I mean, y'all both got the same haircut and the hoop earrings, so
Yeah.
Exactly.
both killing it. That's for sure.
Did we just become best friends?
I noticed that at the press conference, Big Greg, and I was like, you are thorough as hell for that. I love it.
I don't. What you see is what you get, Coach. It's
I
all
love
like
it.
you said. Like you said.
No, that's the thing is so I'm a I'm a tattoo coach with piercings that cusses, right? Like
Right.
that's who I am. Right. I am what I am. I don't hide who I am
Right.
and you can either accept it because here's the thing, I don't have to be for everyone. I just got to be for the right people. And the
Exactly.
right people are gonna see that.
And I feel like we're on the same level. I don't believe in that participation trophy either. I mean, I
Mm.
really don't. I believe in putting in basketball sense the best five on the court, and and if they get on that court, they're deserving of it.
Yeah.
Baseball, the best nine, soccer, the best 11. You keep on down the road, but that's just me. And the other thing I was thinking about earlier when we were, looking at your record, you start out 7-18, go 11-14. This year 17-9. I told these boys when I was coaching their teams and people, you win your first game. Oh, y'all going to the championship. My first thing was, and always will be, this is not a race. This is a marathon.
Mhm.
You know, why chuck out there and, leave yourself dragging on the ground? Let's make sure we get better as we go versus, let it all hang out there. And, you know, a lot of times you can get by on athleticism, but you still have to have a coach that keeps the cohesion going, and I feel like that is you with that program.
No, I appreciate it. It's, we had a 15 game win streak heading into Hampton Sydney, and I told our guys, right, like our goal is to play our best basketball after MLK Day, right? That month, and we ended up beating St. Mary's by 9. We played really well. We let go of I think we are up like 15-16, ended up being a 9-point win. But we really focused on let's just play our best basketball then. And then at that point, how much better you get, it's more about like, can you identify your weaknesses and make those weaknesses more of strengths, right? And so we knew zone offense was a weakness of ours, and so we got better at our zone offense. We knew rebounding, so we knew we had the rebound to beat the best teams in our league, so we were able to get better at that. And in conference, I think we were like even in rebounding margin, which isn't the best, but it's an improvement from what you see on the regular season stats. So I appreciate that. I'm very passionate about being around high achievers and wanting my guys to be high achievers and wanting our program to be a high achievers. I think a lot of that just starts with a vision, um, and laying it out for the guys to understand what it is. And the success that we've had at Bryn Athyn is a credit to them being willing to trust me and our coaching staff and helping them get to the best position, right? Like at the end of the day, we've won 37 games in the last 2 years. Um, None of that is possible without great talent and with that great talent wanting to do something special.
Well, the other thing I was going to tell you, I thought about this all week after I mentioned that baseball team that I played against growing up, the Yankee Rebels. You truly are, or you truly fit that mold by working on that Maryland side and coaching on that PA side because the Mason-Dixon line
I
runs right there between it.
I do. So my uncle Dean was Glenville, Georgia. That's where he was born and raised. And so whenever I go down every Easter, my mom would drive us down to Georgia and spend the week there. And they would just call my family the Northerners. Like we're just the Northerners to them. Like we were not part of the South. And so it's funny.
Well, Coach, I cannot thank you enough for joining us tonight. And, I'll be the first one to tell you, we look forward to seeing you in the NCAA from here on. And we look forward to being in the Final Four with you. We look forward to you hoisting a championship trophy and cutting the nets down. So, and then the other thing is we will also be your play-by-play guys when that comes down to it. So just let us know when we need to be where and when, and if we need to make that southern trip to the Bahamas this year, we got the plane tickets ready.
Love that. Love that. Well, we'll definitely stay in touch. And I'm so grateful for, just the ability to connect with you guys and the conversation, the avenues that we explored. It's been, truly a pleasure and been so freaking cool.
Thank you, Coach, and good luck from here on, and we will definitely stay in touch. We need to make this a priority every year and get to know each other, get to know your team before the season even starts.
Would love to. Just let me know when.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Coach. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks,
Take care,
Coach.
guys.